So, welcome to another happiness class. I'm just going to give you a very quick intro to what happens here. First of all, the kind of topics we discuss are all the way from personal to global issues. This is part of a complete happiness course, so do check it out. I'll tell you the link in a second. This week's main topic is feminism. We will discuss the following questions. Is feminism good for women? Why does religion dictate gender roles? And thirdly, do women lack body autonomy during medical procedures? If you want to find out more, go to bigquestionsanswer.com where you can see the rest of the happiness course. Do check the description for the link to that website if you can't type it all in. And there's all sorts of things like I like to write short written answers, so all sorts of cool stuff in the description. Do get involved. Normally we're in Speaker's Corner. In fact, I'll be back in Speaker's Quarters next week, so I'll be back. I'm currently in Jordan on holiday. You guys in London have been brilliant, just keeping this thing going on every week, despite me being away. But you can still be involved by commenting on the video. I love that. I'm always responding to the comments on the videos. Like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff to promote the show through the algorithm. And so let's do a quick intro of everybody. I'll do my intro, which is the most relevant thing I can think of to this show in terms of intro, is that I'm a Muslim. And why is that relevant? Because that's where my ideas are coming from. And sometimes I feel like, without going into too much, that sounds like a very sort of exclusive way of looking at things. I'm only looking through Islam, but Islam's, without going into my monologues as I normally do, Islam is a religion that accepts all other religions. So I would say it's a very inclusive way of looking at things, but that's all I'll say for now. Well, let's go from my left. That would be Dust, and then we go over to the right. So Dust, do your intro, please.
Well, hello, Internet world and others. My name is Dust, and I'm probably best the way of explaining it, agnostic/philosopher who tries to get to the basic principles of all our interactions and the construct of the reality that we all have to share and contribute in. So that's kind of like where I come from.
Cool. Martyn, please.
I'm Martyn. I'm another regular at Speaker's Corner. I've chatted with you at Speaker's Corner. I'll see you next Sunday as well.
Yeah.
If you want me, I'm an atheist. I'm progressive atheist, a little bit of Satanism in there for fun, and just all about making the world a better place, however we intend to do it.
Cool, awesome. And Summer, new to the show, thank you very much for coming. Please.
That's okay. I'm Summer. I don't go to Speaker's Corner very often, but I dabble in it as and when I feel like it. I would say I'm an atheist, and I'm mainly here to put an input into the feminism and women's rights topic of this week.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, awesome. Thank you very much for being here. We need at least one lady to be here in a feminism discussion. So great that you're here. Let's get started. So one of the things I feel like as a teacher and in terms of developing this show is I feel like I don't really cover all the basics. And what I'm going to do as an experiment on you, Summer, is I've tested these questions. I've got a whole list of basic questions about basic ideas about the topic, where you stand, and what your knowledge is on. It's not like a test, like what you understand about what I see as feminism. And I see feminism as what is a relationship between women and men and the world, sort of thing. And I'm just going to ask a quick few questions. Let's see how it goes. I tested it on my daughter. She kind of understood it, I think. So, and she's 10 years old. So let's see how that works. All right. Not that just because she says something that you're going to say something. Anyway, let me just start. Are men and women physically different?
Yes.
Cool. Do you agree that everything in nature has a clever design, e.g. leaves are designed to be solar panels?
Yes.
Cool. Do the biological differences between men and women make them better at different things?
No.
Cool. Did you know that when a woman is pregnant, her brain changes to specialize in taking care of children?
Yes. I didn't.
I just know that, so cool that you knew that. Is it obvious that nature would make changes in our brains to work with changes in our bodies, such as being pregnant?
Yes.
Cool. By the way, I've got how many? 6, 7 more questions, just so you know.
It's fine. Yeah.
But it'll be hopefully you'll get through this really quick.
Can I just quickly say that
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure also the male brain changes as well.
It
when-
doesn't actually. That's the surprise. Well,
well,
from what I
female-
know, but I don't. Yeah.
But I do think that there's a male change as well.
It probably should, shouldn't it? It would make sense. I think generally, okay, what I do know from the literature that I've studied is that the male brain doesn't change during pregnancy, but generally being married or having children lowers the testosterone. Not sure about the brain. But anyway,
Well, yeah, we'll have a discussion about that over time, but I'm
Cool.
pretty sure physiological change in males as well.
okay, cool. I'm not really an expert. That's what I know. Okay. Okay. Did you know, this is a little bit of a longer one. Did you know that since the 1950s, when women were first encouraged to work away from home, women slowly stopped cooking at home and became more dependent on food from international controllers of food like the World Economic Forum. So the World Economic Forum didn't exist at the time, but big organizations that controlled food, and now they do control food now. So quite a involved question, but in the 1950s, women stopped cooking as much when they were encouraged to work more, and then knock-on effects.
I didn't know that exact fact, but I imagine that's probably true.
Yeah,
Cool.
and that's quite a loaded question
Yes,
as well.
lots of loaded questions. Cool.
And,
It was very specific.
yeah,
Yeah.
and kind of inadvertently leading the witness down a certain route
Yeah,
as well.
sure. But it's kind of like these are important things. These are important things to know that are historically correct.
Yeah, but there is some leading of
Yeah,
the
sure,
witness,
sure.
I would
And
say.
so I'm going to ask a bunch of questions that I think are kind of relevant.
Yeah.
And then,
But you should
think-
definitely analyse the questions.
I am.
yes, sure, exactly. So you don't have to
I'll-
just say yes or no. You could, maybe I should have made that extra clear. You can say, but I think this is giving the wrong impression about something, for example. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, do you feel like that question was giving the wrong impression about something?
I feel like you maybe are trying to accidentally get me to admit something.
Yeah, maybe.
Not for
Yeah.
what,
I mean,
but-
I don't know like the depth of all my, but I think they're really important facts for me, and these are things that I think are relevant. Anyway, so
I'm not going to give an answer to any question that I wouldn't be able to back up.
sure, cool. Should men and women compete against each other in the same sports, such as basketball and rugby?
Depends on the sport.
I know, like say basketball, for example. Should men and women be in the same teams?
No.
Cool. Should sportsmen earn the same as sportswomen, even
Yes.
if men's sports makes more money?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Did you? But okay, if you see it as a business, and one business makes more, and the people who work for like the men's sports are in a business where they make more money, shouldn't that not affect how much they earn?
No, because they should earn money as an athlete.
Okay, cool, interesting. Let me see, where am I? Did you know Western societies are facing population collapse, i.e. humans are dying out? Because Western, and I'm going to be very specific from the studies I've done, non-Muslim families are not having enough children, i.e. replacement children of generations.
I'm sure that we have enough population of the globe to not worry about that for a decent long time. So I consider that a non-issue.
Cool.
Yeah, it's also a leading. I mean, it's also a leading. There's no correlation between the statements and the data being put on offer there. The question is assuming an answer.
I mean, the data is. I mean, I don't know which data you're talking about, because European countries are very well aware that their populations are collapsing, and they're doing a lot to avert that.
I would actually argue that the world would be a better place without humans anyway, so I wouldn't even say it's that big of a deal.
Oh, interesting. We'll talk about that.
Well, I definitely have to comment on that one.
Yeah.
The impression that's been given is that the world is better without human beings. Not that it actually is. It's just the impression that we have and experience from our daily lives, which are pretty horrendous for most people. But that's only because that's the given, not the I believe, as obviously someone will disagree, but not I believe is the actual reality, which is what I'm here on this with you discussing and at Speakers Corner fighting for.
That would be interesting if we can get into that side topic. That would be interesting.
Martyn, you want to?
I'll go, Martyn. Sorry, I'm almost done, but actually, no, I'm not that well done. I've got like 3 more, so I'm taking ages already. Martyn, any thoughts about any of it so far?
I kind of really want to come in on the main question.
Cool. Yeah. Let me see if I can whiz through this one. Where am I? Okay. Did you know that women are more interested in social work, e.g., taking care of children, and men are more interested in STEM, e.g., programming, for example?
That's only because women aren't given the correct opportunities as they should be, and men aren't given the correct opportunities to be care workers, because we're all inherently taught that we belong in a certain place.
Okay.
Correct.
So and then that. Okay. So I suppose I'll quickly respond to that in a second. But you know that where that's leading, which is the gender pay gap, which is if people are skilled in one particular thing, is going to affect how much they earn. That's not really my experience. So, for example, I'm a programmer as well as a teacher, and both when I was studying computer science, very few of the girls were particularly interested in programming, or definitely not one of the top, anywhere near the top programmers. The only girls that were near the top programmers were sort of had some, you could say, masculine element, and which were both of them were into karate or martial arts. But so I didn't see anybody forced into one particular choice. In fact, they were encouraged to go into courses.
I wouldn't say they're being forced. I mean, firstly, I just want to quickly say that I don't think karate and martial arts is masculine.
Oh, okay.
Two, what I meant was we're taught from society where it's ingrained into our brains that taking care of things and being nurturing is for girls, and doing science and stuff is for guys. So it's not that they're not in it because they don't want to. They're in it because we're naturally and taught from a young age socially that we don't belong there, so therefore we naturally don't drift to it, but not because we wouldn't be good at it, because women are taught that we don't belong there.
And also the environment that generally houses those areas of excellence are also dominated by men that also compound the problem that it only should be males in that system. But before we go any further, I think it'd be quite nice if we all gave our definition of what we all think feminism is.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
The Western feminism.
Yeah.
And, who would like to go first?
Go on. You should. Summer, you go first, especially since you're our new guest here.
I've never really thought about giving it an exact definition. I sort of thought it was a little bit self-explanatory, but I guess I would say it's about making a world where everyone is equal. And what I mean by that is not a world where it's women-dominated. It's not what I mean, and a lot of men tend to get that really mixed up. They think that if you're a feminist, you want to take over the world and control all men and kill them all, and women rule the world. That is so not true. The whole point is about making an equal world, and being a feminist isn't just about standing up for women being put down in certain places. It's about standing up for men as well. And I mean, as a feminist woman, I would never ever raise my son to be a man. That's ridiculous, you know. Don't cry, that's for girls. Don't do this, that's for girls. Can't play with dolls, that's for girls. Can't wear pink, that's for girls. I'm not going to raise my son like that because I'm a feminist, not because I hate men.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Martyn, would you like to go next?
I have to follow Summer after that. We're on the same page with a lot of this stuff, but I would say so feminism is like Summer said, it's about equal rights. So we don't want a world where men get to dominate things and men get the best paying jobs and men get to dictate things. So feminism is so that you can have a label for something where you're defending women and you're trying to make it fairer. So we call that feminism. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need feminism because we could just create an equal society. But unfortunately, it's not like that. It's a long way from that. So feminism is making sure that women are given equal opportunities, and we educate the next generation that they don't have to be what at the moment society dictates they're supposed to fit into certain bubbles. Boys play football, boys play with soldiers, you know, like these toys are for boys, you know, stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
So thank you very much for that. Cool. Dust.
Well, it's very similar to my last two honoured guests here in For an Idea. But I'll just add, I mean, feminism and unions, these things shouldn't exist. The only reason they do exist is because the working class women and others, and a lot of other minorities, have no political representation whatsoever in the political discourse of a country, or in fact, the actual institutions which create the culture and society that we all live in. The culture being lawyer, scientist, teacher, as in head teacher, etc., etc., etc. So the only reason that unions exist, the only reason feminism exists and other groups like that, is because there's just no political representation. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So I agree in the sense that what I would describe as Western feminism is what you guys have mentioned, which is this idea of culture has somehow controlled us into believing our, let's say, gender roles. I hate the word gender for historical reasons. I think it's a made up word, but let's say sex roles. So that's what I describe as Western feminism, and the strive to make people equal. So that's that. But my preferred understanding, or I would say the older, much more ancient and maybe more successful version of feminism, is what I just call Islamic feminism, which is really popular with women. In fact, a lot of Muslim women, when I ask my wife and other people, they find Western feminism really at odds with nature. So I would say Islamic feminism is something that represents nature and biology, and it's kind of almost the opposite of Western feminism, because it says that our roles should be defined by nature and biology, and people are more comfortable and happier that way because it's more in line with nature. That's about it, really. If anybody wants to comment on that before I finish off my last two questions? But any comments on that?
Just want to hear these next questions, really.
Cool. Yeah, let me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I was going to say, do you think the sex pay gap is fair? You kind of already answered that, isn't it, Summer? You don't think it's fair? Sorry, I shouldn't be putting words in your mouth.
Yeah, of course it's not fair. No.
Cool. All right. Yeah.
Shall we explore why it exists?
Should we just finish these?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'll be really just two more. Should men and women be treated fairly or equally? I'm not sure if that makes sense by itself. It's like, if I give the example of a 100-meter race in the Olympics, okay, I would say equally means men and women running literally in the same race, and fairly would mean men and women running different races. That would be my understanding of fairly. What are your thoughts on that, Summer?
Again, like it's a little bit it's situational. Like I wouldn't expect a woman to be able to jump higher than a man who's a foot taller than her. So in that sense, no. However, a race is a little bit different because height it doesn't really come into it. It's just a race. So then yes, I struggle to answer that question.
Okay, but the reason, like generally, men are got far bigger hearts and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be same sort of. Let's call it. I do think it's the same kind of thing as a high jump, like you were saying. But let's call it a high jump
men
instead.
Are predisposed towards heart problems.
Oh, okay, cool. So you would say that, let's say in the 100 meters race, that men and women should race against each other.
I would say that it depends entirely on the individual. It should be, what's the word? Holistic.
Cool. Maybe like a choice that women can opt to run it, and men can opt to run in the women's race if they wanted to.
Well, I would say that it depends on the individual. So if me and Dust were to race, then we should have health evaluated and Dust health evaluated. And if it was considered that the race would be fair because although I'm smaller than him, he has health problems, so therefore it equals out, then that would be fine. Whereas I don't think someone like Usain Bolt would be able to race someone like The Rock for obvious reasons, because they're built totally differently and obviously are biologically totally different, even though they're both men. Sure. So I think this is almost impossible to answer.
Oh, okay. All right. So you would keep I don't want to go into it, but you would keep the Olympics how it is, or would you change it? That's kind of like a binary answer.
I would keep it how it is.
Cool. Okay. Let me see the last one. Do you think, so this is super loaded, okay, but this is personally what I feel very strongly about. Do you think that since Western cultures have so many broken families, that they should have more humility when giving advice about how to run families? And I think as Muslims, we feel quite strongly that we're told, oh, you're wearing this and you're doing that. And we're constantly told by the West, this is how you should think. And we kind of think like what we're seeing is broken families, a massive problem with that. So how can people be giving that advice?
I would say that it's unfair to say that Western families are more broken. I would say it's just that we're more liberal. And what I mean by that is if you have a religious husband and wife with 2 kids, they are severely less likely to get a divorce because they swore to God and this and that and, all that sort of stuff. Whereas an atheist father and mother would evaluate their relationship and say, we're not happy and that's not good for our children, so we should divorce. And obviously that is going to have knock-on effects, and that is what you would consider a broken family. But I would say, and I would argue that it's actually much worse for 2 parents to force themselves together in the name of God. So I would say it's unfair to say that Western families have broken families. I would say it's just that
absolutely
we are a lot more willing to evaluate the bigger picture.
Cool. I mean,
I'd just like to add to that.
Yeah, go on, Dusk.
Because very important what Summer said as well, to add a bit more to that, is that the data can be skewed to whatever conclusion you want it to be. And the fact that the data isn't there can also be skewed to whatever you want to be. And a lot of Western religions, the data's not there of the unhappiness, because that happiness isn't ever rarely collected as a data point. And what is hidden is the unhappiness that a lot of families have suffered and do suffer, and therefore the child suffers as well. Because unfortunately, data collection is skewed towards a more positive religious society, because the scientists are not owned in this country, in the West, by atheist or agnostic cultures. They're owned by religious cultures, and therefore they present documents, information biased at source, because you can put a data point and two people are broken up, that's clearly easily definable, but there is no data saying how unhappy people are in a family.
Okay, I mean, we can dispute.
And that is rarely.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. So again, were you going to say something, Martyn?
I was just saying, yeah, it does make sense.
Cool. Yeah, and so, like, I just want to give there are lots of really interesting points of view on both sides so far. So lots of answers that I didn't think of. So that's really interesting. Just want to say that so far. So here's my little thing that I kind of gonna send a clip to the lovely housewives that it's just such an amazing experience. So I've already invited Dust to come down here, and it sounds really weird that I've just met you. I've met you, Martyn. You can come down to summer as well. It's such an amazing experience, and we're living in quite a big, spacious place. So you guys are welcome. There's an online invitation to come and possibly experience what I'm about to describe. So this is my 1 minute monologue. Ready? I've timed it. It's actually 1 minute and 10 seconds. Okay, just so you know. Ready, this is for them. Ready, steady. And there is a question at the end. Ready, steady, go. In the last show, we briefly touched on how to create paradise on earth. In the last few days, I have been visiting one paradise after the other, when my family was invited for lunch in different homes. The less my hosts had, the happier they were. This is one reason why I believe happiness is how much you don't need. The heart of each of these homes was the housewife. The less the housewife had been part of the machinery of capitalism, the more she could feel every tiny need of the guests. This is how paradise is created. This is what Western feminism kills. Western feminism celebrates women joining industry and pities them for creating a beautiful home and raising healthy children. The do-it-all mothers of the West cannot even think of creating paradise at home after a hard day at work. Western feminism has created hell, from my understanding, in the West through broken homes and broken societies. Why should the inmates of hell teach the queens of heaven how to live? So it's pretty harsh, maybe, but I have to say, just instead of stats,
I would say that's a bit of a royal understatement.
Yeah, but this is kind of like, I don't believe that the stats are wrong, because as a private tutor, I used to go to loads of people's houses, and I wouldn't really see this is two reasons why I don't think the stats are wrong. I would hardly see not broken families, like divorce was the normal by like 90%, and also the kids were definitely not happier because of the situation, and I think that should be straightforward. But anyway, comments about that very possibly explosive, I don't know, but really for what I felt was the reality. Yeah. Yes, Dust, go for it.
Again, I emphasize what I just said a moment ago. The data is not there to back up your claim, because we live in a religious society in the West, and it completely biased towards a certain idea of what a family should be, which is in the West, of course, it should be man work, woman house, and cleaning and babies. Sure. And the data just simply doesn't exist to analyze.
So you said the data isn't real, but how can anybody verify your point of view?
Well, I'll get onto that in a moment. But okay. Also, you said capitalism. Capitalism is a religious construct. You're saying capitalism is the enemy here, and yet I believe you are a capitalist at the same time. I think you defended capitalism constantly through our interactions. So there's a slight paradox arisen there. And also one more thing. Yeah. we are in a society governed by empire and capitalism, which is, as I've just explained, a religious entity and philosophy. And the way they split, when they instruct their flock or religious community, is to always be seen the enemy in each other. And if anyone stands up, like a woman or a man or a homosexual or a philosopher or a socialist or whatever stands up against the status quo, is instantly seen as the enemy. Now, this has all been created by the empire, self-govern a policing system, which means that you end up, end up becoming a police officer working on behalf of to maintain this status quo of the reality which we live in at the moment, which is horrific horror of pollution, war, famine, austerity, poverty, etc., which never on the main topic, and instead looking around us who the enemy is, rather than looking to who owns society and who's become not only billionaires today, but trillionaires, like oil companies. We are now, instead of not focusing on them, but just focusing on each other and trying to scream at each other. So that's my statement on that.
Okay, cool. All right. Who would like to go next? Rather than me picking.
Why?
Go on.
I'm making some notes, but right. So where you started there, I think I don't think there's necessarily broken families here. I think families are stronger. Like where you guys maybe said, you can have a family that's very religious and they can be miserable because they're held captive by their religion. They're told, you're supposed to, divorce is bad and blah blah blah, and it's creating an unhappy household. So I think because here in the UK we've moved more towards atheism, more secular, and there are other countries that are very kind of more secular societies. Religion doesn't dominate there. They have, I think families are a lot happier because you're not held captive by churches who have made a rule saying you must be married and you must be together. Here we're like, if there's not a happy household here, then we should go to counselling and blah blah, and then accept no, maybe we're not good together, but they can still have a family. And I think when the word family it doesn't necessarily mean man, woman, child. It can be two men child, two women child, two transgender people child. A family could just be a group of people. Anything can be family. It doesn't mean it's blood related that makes it a family. Anything can be a household with love is a family. This is a little family here. Things like that. I don't think it is broken. I can't give you stats on it, but I don't feel that's
okay. Cool. That's this is all about giving in very interesting different perspectives. The only thing I feel like I have to say for 1 second, because it's been repeated, that religious people feel captive to their marriage, and that's not the general experience I have. That's all I say about that. Yes, Summer, please, any thoughts about it?
So I've got a little list of questions for you now.
Yes.
And
yes.
I am trying to go lightly on you.
No, you shouldn't.
So,
you know what? I
the
don't
first
think I'd
one
be
is-
particularly like myself. But it would be a boring show if we pull the punches, but we're still friends. Go for it, please. I asked for it. I've asked for it on the show. Go on.
Do it.
My first one is, was it you directly who decided that home was heaven and that everyone was happy?
Yes, I think so. I'm not sure if I did a general asking of people. No. So, yes, I decided, yes.
So assuming that you're not a telepath, did they tell you that they are happy
No.
in the role? And do you think that the answer would have been different if you had asked a woman exactly how she felt about her role in the family, or if you asked a man?
They both seem to be really smiley, is the thing. That's what I could tell from. I would say the woman was smiling more, but that could be maybe because she's being, like, in theory, nicer. So that's not an argument either way. But I was just kind of going on the vibes and the kindness and stuff like that. Yeah.
Can I just quickly interject? I think it'd be a good question for you to ask and then get back to us on.
I could. I've got a feel because it's not like this culture is alien to me. They'll be like, I kind of know the answer, but I could ask. It'd be really. I'll ask for the sake of experiment. I'll say my English in the show for the sake of experiment. They're asking this question, and what was the question? Are you? Summer, you can put the question.
My next was, have you ever?
Just clarify that first question.
Oh, sorry, the last.
What would be
Just
the
clarify.
question for that housewife from you?
Yeah, because this is going out to that community. of
And
course.
she.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to know what her genuine thoughts are, and if her role in the family was her aspiration in life.
Cool.
Yeah.
I remember that. Okay, aspiration in life. Okay.
Also, if you're watching this, please, and you're a lady, a woman, please see if you can answer that question as well down below in
Cool.
your
Directly in the comments. Yeah, I'll see if you can do that.
Thank you, Internet.
My next one is, so during any of these examples that you're pulling this information from, have you ever been in a household where there were more than just your family as guests?
Could be sort of extended families.
But
There's a
if
lot of weird sort of invitations. So there's kind of like the street party weddings where there's a whole street invited. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, anything will do. Did you know that the women on the housewives that were doing the cooking and the cleaning and the providing, did you notice that any of the other households' wives decided to join in and help?
Okay, so the street party example is not very good because that's kind of, there'll be a separate men's party and there wouldn't be food, there'll just be coffee being passed around and there'll be lots of music. So I'm trying to think of was it relevant that there were more than one? Oh, because you want to see if there were like an interaction between the housewives.
I'm curious to know if any of the other housewives from different families decided to help out.
So there's a lot of extended families. So they might be part of a bigger family and they help each other out. That's kind of a normal thing. I don't know if that helps or answers.
So you consider it likely that other women would
there's usually
naturally
a bit of
gravitate
teamwork,
towards helping the women of the house.
Yeah, because it's not like
while you were a
it's
guest,
multi-generational houses a lot of the time.
And while you were a guest in this person's house, did you decide to help?
No, sorry. No, I didn't.
Interesting.
Would
do
you
you
like
not
to
think,
That's all right.
why that was interesting?
well, I was asked to help out because I feel like from personal experience I've witnessed that women tend to notice other women doing all the work and naturally think I can chill.
That's true. I think my wife would have helped out a little bit. It's true. And
do you think that she does that naturally because she naturally sympathizes for the housewife because she knows how stressful that job is and not how happy it is?
I wouldn't say it's because it's not how happy it is. It's because she sympathizes more. She's more human or caring than I am. It's true. And also because there's a sort of cultural thing. Like, first of all, I don't speak the same language. And it's kind of like I'm not supposed to jump into certain realms. It's like, oh, but hang on a minute, why are you doing, you're getting involved in my kitchen sort of thing. It's not my house sort of thing. So there is a bit of all sorts of things like that, yeah. But generally, we try to, like, for example, my wife said, don't try to reuse that cup, for example, and I went along with that. So, yeah.
Can I just quickly jump in if you don't mind? Do you feel comfortable helping in the cooking and preparation and cleaning, etc. Would you feel comfortable helping in that role?
I wouldn't mind if
could you
that was. Yeah, I wouldn't mind, but I know that there are very strong gender roles in this society, and it's like you do this, you do that, your job is that. Like they'll say, like in my household, I have to throw out the rubbish and stuff like that, and the girls don't do that sort of thing. But yeah, and that's kind of decided by my wife, sort of thing. So yeah.
I only have one more question regarding
Yeah.
that monologue.
Yeah.
So you said you feel like it's heaven because it's run by the women and they do everything they can to provide for you. Is that right?
Because they cared for it was the detail of the attention that I feel that generally, but I felt like the heart of that invitation was the women, even though the men participated in that, but it was really the women that really brought it together. Yeah.
So you would feel uncomfortable if you walked into a house and it was a man doing the things that the housewives were doing, because you would not consider that heaven anymore.
No, I just don't think they would be as good. As they're not as careful and thoughtful as men are. Men are.
Do you think because men have taught not to be?
No, I think there are biological differences. Yeah, and I think the statistics back that up.
Are biologically less good at putting things in a pot and stirring it.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not true. So in like the men. Just to give you an interesting answer. No, I think there's a really interesting answer to this, which is, so our Muslim community runs these massive events where thousands of people are fed and all the men do the cooking for those kind of things, but where it's massive amounts of food and it's really hot and really heavy stuff, and the women hate doing that. It's just a different kind of work that some women prefer and men prefer different and whatever.
Your line of question regarding how gender is constructed is the relevant thing, and that should be the one that should be absolutely pushed.
I'm sorry. You've lost me.
I think where Summer's coming from is these roles that you experience each other, male, female, they're not preordained in religious groups, and these religious groups divvy out this role to help divide societies, not to divide the workload, but to divide societies and make them less functioning and less happy. I'm proposing, I think Summer's proposing,
cool.
Religion. I've almost finished. Religion contributes to the breakdown of the happy family, rather than the assumption that you brought, which is family. Religion brings the positive outcome of a family. Because I would propose the same thing. Is that?
I actually wasn't thinking about religion, or it didn't cross my mind. I actually think this happens regardless. I think there are plenty of atheist households that have exactly the same viewpoint as you do, regardless.
Now that's an interesting question. Observation and question. I think most as I've said before, as I said before, most atheists are not atheists. They are still very much attached to their religious upbringing that they have. Deconstruction of your religious upbringing, and that will classify as an atheist.
So I will just make one comment, and I'll let one of you guys to, because as usual we've kind of gone overboard, and maybe we'll spend 2 minutes. You will decide. Okay, actually I will stop there because I'm rubbish at sticking to time. Dust. I feel like I have to answer this. I'm going to say it in one answer. I think the difference between men and women are real, and they're not constructed. That's what I'll say, and I'll let anybody else have the last comment. and then we'll move on to Dust. You've got to take charge of the show because it's getting out of control in terms of time.
I think Summer we should definitely finish on Summer.
Go for it.
We'll introduce them. Me and Martyn will.
If you don't think they're constructed, where do you think they come from?
Biology. It's real. The differences are seen. We can see the differences.
So what differences do you mean? Do you mean roles? Our roles in society are biological?
Yes, because we are different. Just like a cat behaves differently, then within a species, if there are physical differences, then ideally we should be attuned to those natural differences. It's called specialization. That's all it is.
So, as an example, you're saying that women are biologically predisposed to be better at cleaning than men are.
Yes, actually, because they have they've got more of a disgust, sense of disgust. Yeah, so it makes a difference, and that's my experience. Even
though I could argue.
So
just really quickly, even though I could argue that back when humans first had been evolved from animals, we didn't have houses to clean. But you're still saying that we're predisposed to cleaning something that didn't exist yet.
I think we've concluded that, and I think we've also agreed. We all understand where we're coming from. Now we're just repeating the same arguments.
Fair enough. So
and I don't mind doing that.
Yeah. So
I'd rather move on to not to a new subject as such, but just to to discover more about nuance. Again, I agree with Summer, and said, and Martyn, and religion divides families. That have been shut down by MI5 and other related.
Yes, the connection was slow, but I think it's coming back.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
We can hear you at least.
We
can hear you.
That's why I was like, don't die. Okay, Dust, you must take control of the time and whatever happens next. You're in charge.
Yeah, I'll come out with a.
We got you back.
I just want to say the problem is education, school, sex educations about what it is to be a man and a woman, and those educations should be jointly done, which is what Summer was saying to me.
And accepting what we're all individually good at.
And accepting and acknowledging the fact that we can excel in a certain area, regardless of our sex, and let the numbers define what our positions are, not what a religion dictates and can and does dictate. But fundamentally, we must have your sex education at school must be united. It must be multi-sexed, and it must explore the philosophy of what it means to be a woman and what it means to have agency over your body, and how that agency must be respected in all spheres of life, from the legal to the education and everything in between that, which is a vast, varied of workplaces and occupations which exist in that. And no, because you are a woman doesn't mean you're predestined to be cleaning. You can be a lawyer and just as effective, profoundly brilliant, etc. You can be anything. Martyn?
I can just give. I'm kind of agreeing with these guys, so I'm not going to repeat everything they said, but I think maybe a good idea is maybe if I had a kid or something, let's not have society tell you what you can and can't do, or what you can and can't aim to achieve. Let's let the person try and achieve what. So if you had a girl, you're not going to say to them, "Oh, don't ever try and be a footballer. That's boys stuff. We just saw a women's football team win a major tournament. It was just celebrated. So I would say let's in terms of education, instead of saying this is what we already think you can't achieve, or realistically you're not going to get to do this job, let's look at what people are brilliant at and really encourage them regardless of boys, girls, men, women, so that way we create better opportunities for everyone, because we're championing what their skills are, and we're not saying, oh, you're a woman, oh, you're good at cooking, you should, you can only be a cook. But you could achieve a brilliant role, and you could do something great in football, you could do something great in politics. You're not forced down one set of roles you can only aim to achieve. So just try and come back to creating a fairer society. Make sure everyone has opportunity and everyone has a chance to be the best at what they can be.
Would you like to give a message to give a positive message for women out there about their sex and sexuality?
I feel like my presence here arguing their side of the world is good enough, because it's nice to know that there's someone who's got your back.
And yeah, I think being a woman, you should be proud of what you are, proud of your sexuality, and I believe that as an individual, excel in what your dreams want you to excel at, and don't let someone tell you that you can't. Yeah, be your own person and learn how to say no. Absolute merit in any situation, and law as it should do, but not here in the UK, unfortunately. I think, have we all concluded?
Good.
I think what you mean that's the end of the whole thing?
No, it's the end of that section, because we're going to do your question now.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Right, so would you like to introduce your question?
I think you've got something to say.
Oh,
I'm scratching my head. No, go for it.
So what's next? My question?
I think your question is on the table now.
Okay.
Please present it and give a quick background to why the question exists.
Okay. So my question is, do females or women lack bodily autonomy during medical procedures? So that's a little bit of a specific question and maybe a confusing one to some people. If people don't know what that is, bodily autonomy is the right and the knowledge over your own body. During medical procedures, I'm being really broad on that. I mean, literally anything from a doctor's appointment to major surgery. I just wasn't sure how to phrase it. And what I mean by the question as a whole is, are women given and are they offered the knowledge and the right to know and the right to own over their own body during any sort of medical procedure or consultation or scan? Or
just to give a little bit of backdrop, because me and someone were talking about this before it came on air, is obviously the hospital profession and that environment is dominated by men. Therefore, it's a male understanding of a female body, and female is. Do you want to carry on with this?
No, you
give an example.
Oh, an example. So I can give a personal example from my own personal experience, because that is obviously the most reliable, because I'm right here, so you know it's true. So as an example, so sort of like lead us into the topic, so maybe you understand a bit more what I mean. When I was 15 years old, I was having a lot of trouble with my menstrual cycle. It was very heavy, it was very painful, all that sort of stuff. So I went to a gynecologist and they suggested that I have a coil fitted. Really want to quickly check that you know what that is.
I know, let's just carry on. We can.
The context matters, otherwise people are like, what was that? You know what a coil is?
No.
It's
heard of it and I forgot about it.
It's a method of contraception that is inserted inside your uterus.
Right.
That context matters, otherwise you won't understand why it's so painful.
Sure.
that was all I knew at the time, and I barely even knew that. And they didn't tell me it was going to be painful. They didn't tell me what they were going to do during procedure.
How old were you again?
15. What tools I was going to use. I wasn't offered any painkiller. I wasn't offered anything like that. It was done right there and then in the office. I just lay down. They pulled a screen over. I said, "Is this going to hurt?" And they said, "Oh, just a pinch." And to put it lightly, it was the most painful experience of my life so far. I was crying, I was bleeding for months and months, that sort of thing. And it was only until about a year ago I finally found out via a woman online who is a gynecologist and shares the actual experience. I found out how the procedure is done. And I can't believe after all these years I didn't know that. They pierce your cervix, as in actually puncture it. And if I had known that, I wouldn't have gone for that option of contraception for obvious reasons. It was horrendously painful. I can't believe they even thought about putting a child under the autonomy.
And was that the first doctor a male?
Oh God.
Was it?
God, I can't even remember.
She was saying to me it was a man that did.
Yeah, there were men. There was a mixture. There was men,
advising you.
Man. Then there was an elderly woman. A couple of times I saw some junior people, university students, that sort of thing. You saw a different person every time.
And was your parents?
Only my mum.
No. All right.
Yeah, but obviously because this is such a prominent issue, my mum was also unaware, even though she's a grown adult. You know, it turns out that they'd actually inserted it wrong as well. So for 6 months of my life, at 15 years old, I was in horrendous pain constantly. And every single time I went back, they told me I was being dramatic. It will settle down. It's normal, all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't until I finally saw this really lovely lady in hospital who finally had a look at it inside and said, "It's wonky, we need to take it out immediately." And she took it out right there and then. It wasn't painful because she didn't put me through any sort of pain or use any horrible, scary instruments. And that was the end of that, finally. So that was 6 months of my life I'll never get back. And a pretty traumatic one at that as well. So that's an example of what I mean by, do women lack body autonomy in medical procedures? And I truly believe that is a brilliant example of no, they don't, because I would never, ever have gone for that option at that age, or even now, if they had told me they were going to puncture my cervix and make me bleed internally for 6 months. I just wouldn't have done it. I don't think anyone would. It's barbaric.
So I think what I'm gathering from this summary is that due to the fact there's not enough qualified female doctors, not enough doctors in hierarchies of the political system which governs over health of a country, and not enough education in our schools regarding women's health. And the conversation is, am I right to be exploring?
I would say it's more about the education and the people that govern over our health system. I wouldn't say it's because there's a lack of females, because I would say that gynecology probably has an abundance of women because it's about female health. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they all know exactly the same thing and they know it right. And actually, the saddest part is I've met a lot of women who are misogynistic themselves, and it's because they're taught to be, and it's learned behaviour. They're taught to tell another young girl to suck it up, I'm being dramatic, I'm being hysterical, calm down, it's normal. And in fact, it's not normal. And the only reason they think it's normal is because they were put through the same thing. And if they hadn't have been put through the same thing, and if they had been told, this isn't normal, you're valid, it's okay to cry, it's okay to, it's not okay that you're bleeding, all that sort of stuff, then they wouldn't have said that to me. And therefore the cycle would have been stopped. So I would say it's a lot about the education, the people that govern over, and about what we teach people from a young age emotionally.
What would you like to see? What age? What's the earliest age you think women should be more introduced to their bodies, from the point of view that you're talking from, and who should be the person or person responsible for doing that?
Anyone who is who is able should be the one doing that, whether that's a father. No, it could be a mother. You could be a 9-year-old who wants to know what a period is, and you could sit down and her father could explain it, and I don't see why that is an issue.
But I think it should happen at school.
Yeah, obviously it should happen at school as well, but I would say that one of the things I'm really grateful for is the fact that my mum actually taught me this stuff before school. And the reason I'm happy about that is because I feel like I would have learned it wrong at school, because people picked on each other, there was misinformation, bullying was pretty prominent, so you couldn't come forward and talk about an issue you had. I couldn't have come forward and said something like, how do I shave my armpits? Which is a pretty valid question as a child, and it also would have been a pretty valid answer if someone turned around to me and said, you don't have to, but that wouldn't have. And I'm really grateful that I actually grew up in a household with just me and my mum, where she sat down when I was as young as I could to understand and said, when you're old enough, this is what's going to happen to you. It's normal. You're totally valid. It is going to hurt, and that's okay. And this is what you can do to ease that. And she fully educated me. And if anything, I think that experience of being educated properly made me realise that when they actually taught me in school, I saw so many plot holes, things they missed out, things that didn't make sense, things that they were pushing in their own favour. I noticed that after we came out of our sex ed class, the boys hadn't been taught about periods at all. We were like, oh, can you believe that video we just saw? And they were like, what video? We only got taught about wetting the bed and boners. It's like, seriously?
So can we conclude that the education system has failed?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
I see my observation of that is the reason why we do have such. I'll bring you into this in a moment. So
Sorry.
Quickly say, because we live in a religious society, and it's horrifically cut the costs of our education in our schools. And one of the main things that get hit is sex education, music, arts, and those sort of areas. And where we don't have education, we have rumour and misinformation. And in misinformation, all sorts of horrors can manifest from that. How would you communicate with your daughter some of the subjects that
that's a good question.
Would you feel comfortable, and what extent is your role as a father talking about the biology?
Would you be, if your daughter came to you with an issue about her cycle or puberty, would you feel comfortable answering that question? And knowledgeable enough.
My thing is that I'm not a very shy person, so I'm not sure if that's kind of the thing is. I know my wife and daughter got a really close relationship, and they discuss all those things. I've never talked about her menstruation, although I could, but I think I know because I know my daughter that she would find it really weird. Or I just think it's a theoretical question because she doesn't ask me those questions, and she gets lots of information from my wife, who does a really good job at it. And my wife is the one who kind of dictates in a way, like she goes to, I've got a son as well, and he says, you talk to your son and tell him X, Y, and Z. And when I did, my son was going, stop talking, I don't want to hear it. So anyway, I'm just telling you that's how it is in our household.
Summer? You want to interrogate that a bit more?
But I mean, shall I just say that I do agree education should be better. I mean, the two things that come to my mind, actually the first thing about what you were saying, your horrific experience, I generally it sounds really bad, but I think it's almost by purpose. I think the NHS is so horrible that I stay away from it as much as possible, just as a human being, first of all. And maybe there's a conspiracy that somebody's trying to ruin it so badly that it all goes privatized, but that's another story. And the other thing is, I totally agree. And more education. We need more education. So I suppose maybe that's obvious. I don't know.
Have you? Do you know if your son has ever been educated on the female anatomy and
wow.
our bodies?
I don't know, because
I
I
would-
don't know lots of things that he
Let
doesn't know. Yeah.
Sorry, what you
I
going to
don't
say?
know. I don't know. I could check with him.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say I would say that's probably a really good step in the right direction if you're interested in that sort of thing. I think, although it might be really awkward for him, it's really important. And I think it would make him, as an adult, you don't realise that sort of effect it can have. But I mean, I'm really appreciative that my partner now actually knows about my body, so that I try and, like, you know, explain things to him in a childlike way, because he wasn't taught as a kid. Like, it's a bit of a hassle. So
No, I think you should be aware,
I would
yeah.
be a really positive thing to do to make sure that he's not one of the many who is uneducated and that sort of thing. It would go a really long way in his future.
Cool. No, I agree that I think people should be aware. From my perspective, I hope he'll marry a woman and therefore have an understanding of that woman. So, yeah,
Yeah,
relevant.
Yeah. And also so that having an education of young boys in that sort of sense also prevents from a lot of the bullying that happens to girls about their periods. An experience I had as well during high school was we weren't allowed to talk about it, reference it. Tampons weren't allowed to be on show. No one was allowed to know if I had a pad in my bag, because I would be relentlessly picked on by the boys. It would be like, disgusting, ha 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 ha, oh my god, I bet you stink, all that sort of rubbish. And I think that in young boys on what it actually is and the fact that it's totally normal would be like a really good step in the right direction into making women feel comfortable in their own bodies for once.
Yeah, I think, again, the more education we have in all aspects of our reality, by the way, means that the less division that can ever happen, and the less division means more unity, and unity means happiness for families and communities. And instead of bickering amongst ourselves and descending to arguments which we shouldn't really be happening, we can be focused more on the real questions around our reality, like where's all the wealth gone? Why do we have so much environmental pollution and poverty and other real subjects of real merit and of real profound effect on our lives? Because one of the reasons why the rates are coming down so much of female births in the West, is because a lot of people experience reality as pretty horrendous, absolutely horrendous. People are making the conscious decision not to have families because of the horrors of war, poverty, and other terrible things that are all designed and manufactured into our realities. That's the real reason why birth rates are going down in the West, is because we have understanding in the West. We have a better education and awareness. And the solution isn't, to display women for not being women enough or men not being men enough, but actually, again, instead of being divided as human beings, become united and look at the real problems. The pollution.
I do want to say that I do think this is a real problem, and I don't agree that. I think it's the lack of family structure, and I see it, and the data is there, and I don't agree that the data is faked. That families are breaking down.
The data's biased.
I don't really agree with that either, because I see the reality. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Yeah.
I think we've all clarified it perfectly.
Sure.
Should anyone else, should we just now all sum up, maybe give a positive?
Well, unless any of you got any experiences of any female family members or friends you know of that have experienced this?
Obviously
my list could go on forever, but
how are we doing for time before I start on that? Should we wrap about
we are
5-10
on
minutes?
8 minutes past the hour, so we are doing better than usual.
Are we still happy to carry on talking?
I'm happy, but I'm worried about our guests.
yeah.
All right. So my being a male, I was brought up by my mother, who experienced a terrible relationship with her father, my father, not her father.
By the way, what I meant by experience was the body autonomy in medical.
Oh yeah, we are on that subject.
Yeah.
I was about to go down a different path just then. Well, because I had no professional professional relationship with that environment, and obviously not female, and I have no.
Okay, Martyn.
Well, I mean, most of my I'm learning a lot more from experiences some go through, but I mean, I don't want to sideline the whole discussion, but I hear lots of stories about things to do with abortion, things to do with sort of transgender issues and stuff like that. So I think a lot of that comes into that. I mean, abortion opens up a whole other thing, which we can. I don't know if you want to.
That would be.
But
that's
that's
a whole week.
A huge big example, or sort of maybe between that and how someone discusses it. Actually, it's sort of those are the two big areas that come to mind. Because I listen to quite a lot of sort of atheist debates and things like that, and that comes up, especially at Speaker's Corner. I think that's one of the biggest examples of women not having autonomy over their own body or rights or choices over their own body. And a lot of it comes down to a lot of problems. Is you can do it. I think a lot of it comes down to the lack of education, like we're saying. So it's sort of it's a lack of education and these sorts of people being pushed into stereotypes or being pushed into expected kind of roles, and it's done by I don't know what you want to call it, like the media or popular or people that have the money and want to advertise certain things. Even like small example, when I put the magazines out at work, this doesn't sound that dramatic, but it didn't occur to me. I didn't really look at it that way, but now I look at it a different way. There's certain magazines like Woman and Home and
try and stay on the body autonomy in medical.
Sorry, go on. Carry on.
Finish.
Finish what you were saying.
Finish about magazines, because that sounded like.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was just saying because people kind of put into like they stereotype certain people. So men's magazines are put together, and these are women's magazines, and it's sort of like, so it kind of reflects maybe how society sometimes sees how women are supposed to be. Women are supposed to buy the cooking magazines and these slimming magazines, and men buy car magazines and stuff like that. I don't know, that's a small area where I kind of see it, but obviously it gets a lot bigger once you kind of step out of that and you see how when it comes into politics and stuff like that, and you see that in sort of when I say about body autonomy, like abortion, that's a massive other big thing.
I just really quickly wanted to tell you all a fun fact in case you didn't already know what this was. I just wondered if any of you have heard of the extra stitch.
No.
So that is a medical procedure done to women. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but it still happens. It really does still happen in certain areas of the world. I'm pretty sure it's now illegal in the UK, thank God. But I thought I would enlighten you. The extra stitch is something that is done to women after childbirth against her will, chosen by the husband, and it is when they sew up the vagina an extra stitch to make it tighter for men during sex.
Wow.
Also, I think another interesting thing to bring up is because Jewish people have their skin cut off against their will, not against their will, but without any agency whatsoever towards that boy. But the equivalent for the women is horrendous.
Genital mutilation.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, even the genital mutilation between men and women is sexist. I mean, the way it's done to men is circumcision. So it's the we're going to do this because it makes you more pure, ridiculous, right? But it also does actually have genuine health benefits. So the underlying bit is at least they sort of care. But to us, it's, we don't want you to have pleasure. We don't want you to feel good. We want you to suffer if you ever have sex, ever. Screw you.
I mean, just in case, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about this. Like Islam and Judaism doesn't teach female genital mutilation. Just so, because people, you get a lot of the wrong news out there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just thought I'd enlighten you onto what the extra stitch was, just to mortify you a little bit more that is still happening. It's still a prominent thing that exists in countries where men have the power over women. It's not a choice that we get. If I was born in a different country, that is something I'd be subjected to if I was ever to get pregnant. It's
Do you
real.
know which countries that still do that?
I would say probably more of the low-income countries.
Okay.
Probably ones that are extremely heavily religious, the ones where it's like illegal to do any, that sort of thing. Ones where men still have
I would like to know for sure, do you know what I mean? Because otherwise it's not fair. Let's say somebody who really loves their country and then somebody says X about their country and maybe it's not true. It's not fair on that country. Do you know what I mean? So it's
definitely a real medical procedure that did exist for a long time, and it even existed in places like the UK and the United States, and it wasn't until not that long ago that we actually had to make it illegal.
Yeah, sure. No, I can imagine some people enforcing their will on other people, so I totally get it. On the other sex is true. So cool. Okay, that is obviously terrible. Yeah.
I was just saying, do you want to talk about last subject? A bit cheeky, but maybe talk about abortion and women's rights, just to what each of us feel, rather than just give a statement, rather than make it in no question.
Yeah, it might be interesting, I think. Yeah.
We can have questions if we feel like we've got time, of course, but I'm conscious of time. So I think, someone, would you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
No, I can go. So, what, you just want my views on it?
Yeah, because as we all know, as just happened in America just recently, the Catholic Christian right, the Republicans, have just ended women's ability to be able to have abortions under even the most horrific situations of rape or incest. From the Christian right, the leadership that is, they have now concluded that abortion is simply out of the question, and you are the criminal in that procedure. So,
I just want to quickly open up by saying abortion is healthcare, not a privilege. It's not a luxury; it's healthcare, which is a lot of what some people get completely misunderstood about. They seem to think it's a luxury item that we get to pick when it's convenient to us. It's absolutely not. There are so many circumstances where birth and pregnancy is life-threatening, and taking that away from us is totally hypocritical when people are saying they want to save lives. So most of the people that say we should make abortion illegal because we want to save the babies, but then on the same page they're saying that abortion should still be illegal even if the birth would kill the mother. And they say, yeah, but saving the babies. And I say, yeah, but saving the mother.
Yeah.
And I personally think that the woman who has got family, friends, experiences, life, and a contribution to this world has more of a right over a few lumps of cells.
Definitely.
Well, do you want to introduce?
Well,
no one finished with.
I don't know.
My main man over there.
I did. I think so. Feminism is more important now than ever. The struggle is more important now than ever. We've seen the world slip. You only have to blink for a moment, the world can slip a little way. For example, Trump, for example, the abortion laws changing in America, society can slip the wrong way very easily. So we've kind of seen that happen. So it's more important than ever now to defend women's rights, to defend any human rights, whether it's a woman, whether it's a transgender person, whether it's straight. We just have to defend people's rights
But
people are,
abortion specifically, what's your opinion?
on abortion. It's a woman has a right to decide what happens to her body. It's that simple. No one, I can't decide it. No men can decide it. No government can decide it. No person with a holy book definitely cannot decide it. It has to be one and only the woman that decides it, with whatever counselling they need, whatever support they need to help them be sure they definitely want to do this, because it's a medical procedure. Even it's still a medical procedure. You would ask for advice for any kind of medical procedure, but it has to be her decision. Like you wouldn't have someone telling you what you can do with your body. So why is it for a woman? Just because a woman can give birth, it's the same.
Yeah. It should be added that most cases that get presented to the right and nationalists are extreme cases that, and are also distorted, the cases that give to the nationalists and the far right to try and stop women from being able to have choice. But the majority of women do not want to have an abortion. They do it because there's a genuine medical and sociological reason as well. It isn't just a whim. And I think the idea that is out there quite a lot, that it's a whim, is absolutely horrendous and it's false and has absolutely no bearing in reality. Would you like to give the final view on this, and then I think we'll all start saying goodbye?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's obviously interesting on different levels, but like from an Islamic point of view, that the woman is given the right to have an abortion, but they're advised don't have an abortion for the sake of worrying how the child will be fed, because we believe God creates the wealth to feed the children. But having said that, it has to be very clear that anything in Islam is what we call a moral choice, in that there's a literal teaching in Islam which is there's no compulsion in matters of religion. So it's kind of like, if you feel like following the religion of Islam, this is what Islam suggests. And I think that's very wise, because who could care more about the child than the mother? So as you say, I don't think it's a whim. I think there needs to be some sort of more education on this, because for what I've heard about abortion is horrific when it's more than a few cells, like pulling off limbs of a child and crushing the skull and whatever. Maybe I'm wrong because I'm not a doctor, but that's what I've heard from I've watched a video of a doctor who's an abortion clinician, but maybe he was a fake. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's very false.
I mean, I could tell you exactly the 2 ways it's done right now if you wanted me to.
Let's just say for an 8-month child, let's say an abortion.
You can't get.
Oh, you can't.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, saying 8 months. You see, this is just. It's just it doesn't happen unless an extreme medical reason arises.
Yeah.
Extreme. It's nowhere in the world gives abortions 8 months. That's
Sure.
completely
It's just not possible. Whatever. Okay.
Something will happen life-threatening to the woman during an 8-month term pregnancy, then the baby would simply be prematurely taken out, but it would live. It's not aborted.
See,
Yeah.
already been correct.
Only up until certain weeks when it really is just a little tiny fetus. It looks like jelly,
Cool.
There's no skulls, no ripping off any limbs. That's absolutely horrible.
For my education, what's the latest age?
I forget. I'd have to look it up if you give me.
Bear with us for a moment.
Okay. That's
I
very
forget.
interesting. Okay.
Googling that here. I mean, it changes all over the world, of course, but
Yeah.
all across the world set limits, even in the most liberal societies.
The absolute maximum is 24 weeks. Maximum.
Right. Okay. And are you saying there's no limbs or something, or no parts of the body, or no consciousness? Or something?
It's not. It's a fetus. It's not. Or an embryo. It's not a baby. Yeah.
Right.
It hasn't got thoughts. It hasn't got a consciousness. It hasn't got feelings. Yeah.
And again, this abortion isn't something anyone does on a whim. That is again a lie which is projected out there by certain groups. done because of pretty horrific decision has to be made. And obviously contraception, if it was free and uneducated in our schools, abortions would rarely ever happen because we'd be allowed to have choice at the moment we're engaged in sexual activity. Unfortunately, in Catholic countries, they ban contraception, condoms, and anything as sexual health protection, thus endangering humanity horrendously and increasing dramatically the chances of abortions happening because of their cruel decision being made, not letting people have real choice over their own bodies during the act of actual sex and intimacy and love between two adults, or between two adults.
I think it's important to mention as well that that, like many things, if you make something illegal, people are still going to find a way. And that is why back when it was illegal before, there was backstreet abortion clinics. And so not only is making it illegal oppressive, but it's also not going to change anything. The only thing it's going to do is cause more deaths because people are going to turn to backstreet abortions. We're going to be filling up prisons left, right, and centre, and people are going to die. You know, they're going to damage their bodies. And then what I mean by people is I don't mean something this big made of cells and flesh. I mean people with lives and families and bodies and experiences and jobs. That's what I mean. Those people are going to die, and that's so important and something that is will happen if it's made a law that we can't go and get it done professionally. That's why we have professionals. If it was something I could do at home, we wouldn't have a need for people that could do it. You know? And it's not something you can do at home, which is exactly why you'd need to go to a hospital. But if we don't have that option, people are going to turn to extreme measures the same way. I'll stop there, but you get the point.
No, I do. I think a very strong point.
And you've articulated yourself incredibly as well. Well, thank you very much.
No worries.
That's absolutely incredible from all of us, of course.
Yeah.
It's been an absolutely brilliantly educational, thoughtful, and considerate and respectful conversation and discussion that we've had this evening, even though this topic is extremely sensitive. And I hope you viewers out there appreciate the myriad of complications that are involved in what we've been talking about. And yes, because we haven't touched upon them here, doesn't mean we aren't conscious of them. It's just, unfortunately, we are time restrained. And
Can I just see one
please go.
This is why I really wanted to encourage someone to come down and kind of be involved, because I don't think it's right if we went on to feminism or abortion or certain things, it wouldn't be right for us three blokes here to just sit and talk about abortion, because we're contributing to the problem, it being dominated by men. Someone should be here to be part of that because it affects women, and it's important that the discussion has at least one woman involved in it, for goodness sake. If we're going to be talking about this, it's important, if we're talking about feminism, to have a woman there to give her life experience and her,
thanks for saving the show again.
Otherwise, it's just three blokes talking about, we're not the ones
that sounds great.
Rights that
three blokes. Next time we'll do that. We'll brought the woman along. No, we're very lovely having you here.
Sorry if I dominated it a little bit. I didn't mean to.
I feel like doing an apology as well, but not particularly. But I do feel like I do come on really hard. But I'm glad. I think that makes the show better, and I'm glad you hopefully didn't take it too badly. But I do think there are very strong, different points of view on what feminism is, and these are like many women say this. I wanted my wife to say these, come on the show and express it directly. And it's not just an East versus West. There's most of the people who convert to Islam are women, and they prefer the Islamic feminism. So I'm just saying there are lots of strong points of view, and it's better that both of them are said. But I hope nobody took it in a wrong way, more like an academic and an interesting point of view. Like I've learned a lot already, learning about abortion, for example, which I've heard X on YouTube. But yeah, anyway.
Be careful with YouTube.
Yeah. No crushing skulls, no tearing off limbs. Trust me, that is yeah, 100 not
It's
true.
propaganda.
Yeah.
It's wrong. Yeah.
So I think we should conclude on that. I think we've done extraordinarily well. Would we all like to leave with a positive thought about life, universe, and everything?
I like that, if you can.
Just make a conscious decision every day to be a good person.
Wow.
Try to leave this world a little bit better than you found it each day.
Oh my God, you're taking all those brilliant ones. Okay, the only thing I could follow up with that, I would say do those two plus follow the truth as much as you can. But following the truth without being a good person is pointless. So be a good person, make the world a better place. Fantastic.
I'll finish with don't afraid of being yourself. Listen to your internal voice and learn to project that. It's not easy. That we all society benefits from you growing and becoming stronger, and that internal voice becoming your external voice, united, makes for a beautiful society.
Cool.
Would you like to say thank you very much for hosting us? You've been absolutely. Your questions have been hard, dynamic, been very, very contributing to a brilliant conversation. So thank you ever so much. Do you want to thank?
Yeah. Cheers for doing
Same
this.
thing.
All
Thank
right,
you.
okay.
Thanks to you.
I normally do the thanks, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
I totally massively appreciate you guys coming and taking part and whatever. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You have to finish, otherwise we'll keep saying thank you. Go on, you outro. Okay, that's the outro. We're ending on. Ooh. All right, bye guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, lovely universe. Goodbye.
I'm gonna press the end record.